Mathisen for now after week 5, I suppose it is, for the Huskies. They just played Oregon State last night and suffered a very disappointing loss to Oregon State. Their first time losing to Oregon State in a decade. So, not a good night last night for the Huskies. And on today's show, I'm going to be talking about what went wrong for the Huskies, both offensively as well as defensively. Looking at once again the reoccurring segment I do where I talk about who shined for the Huskies and who disappointed. And then finishing up with not talking about a preview for next week as the Huskies have their bye week. I'll be talking about if the season's already over for the Huskies or if they can salvage this disastrous start to a season where they're now sitting at 2-3, 1-1 in the conference. But jumping right into it, just with the offensive struggles that the Huskies had last night against Oregon State. And this storyline keeps coming up week after week. Even when the Huskies win, there's still, you can point to times during that game where the Huskies offense struggled, except maybe against Arkansas State. That might have been the one complete game this Husky offense had. But does that really count going up against Arkansas State, a team that had a bad defense, a team that gave up 55 to Memphis? So that game's not too impressive for the Huskies, being their one solid offensive performance. I mean, against Cal last week, the Huskies offense put up a great first half, scoring 21 points. And then in the second half, they put up only 3 points and then scored a touchdown in overtime. But now against Oregon State, going into the game against Oregon State, I was expecting kind of the score that happened. I thought Washington, I think I said, would win 24-21. Washington put up 24 points, so I was right on the dot there. Unfortunately, the Beavers put up 27 points. And even with the Beavers coming into this game with this high-powered offense, putting up 38 points per game, I didn't expect that because of the Huskies' pass defense. I knew it would be more of a mid-20s game being scored. And I figured the Husky offense could keep up with this Beaver offense because really it's really not saying a compliment for the Husky offense as much as the Beaver defense I didn't think was that great. I mean, on the year they've played solid football, allowing 27 to Hawaii, 0 to Idaho, 27 to USC. So I guess they're not the best of defensive teams, but the Huskies aren't a very good offensive team. And that showed throughout this game. Really, the Huskies had one great drive to start the game off, the Trell Bynum long touchdown reception he had. It was a great start. And then after that, on the pursuing drives following the 6-play, 75-yard touchdown drive, the Huskies went 3 plays, punt, 2 plays and a fumble, 3 plays and a punt, 6 plays and an interception, 3 plays and a punt, and then they got a field goal to go into half. So the Husky offense disappeared after the first game. It was the same story that's been said time and time again this season. Husky offense not showing up. The Husky offense being too predictable, running the ball up the middle too often, or having these slant routes, screen passes, these intermediate short passes that, even if they're completed, aren't going to move the ball down the field. They aren't going to make a dent in this defense. I watched numerous times last night watching the game. I saw plays where it was 3rd and 7. What does Dylan Morris do? He attempts to throw it to a very shallow, like 2-yard crossing route. It's not even going to get the first down if it was completed. It's a pointless throw. And that's what you watched time and time again. And you watched Morris struggle. Morris has struggled this year in situations countless times. And last night he struggled almost the whole game. Yes, he had that one drive to start the game. That was it. Everything else was just painful to watch. He finished the game 17 of 26 for only 142 yards, 1 touchdown, like I said on the first drive, and 1 interception. His QBR was 16.6. That's not good at all. Morris's interception he threw he's thrown a lot of interceptions this year. I believe he's got 6. I think he's got 7 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. And he's thrown some bad ones, but this one was another one of those just atrocious interceptions where he threw it right to the defender. It was a perfect pass to the defender's hands. He's supposed to be throwing it to the Huskies, and he's thrown it to Oregon State. Now that turnover, fortunately, because the Husky defense is good, it got an interception 2 plays later, so that interception didn't cost them. But the Cam Davis fumble, that was a costly turnover, as after Cam Davis fumbled, it took Oregon State 3 plays to score as they were already on Washington's 11. Costly turnovers will always kill you in a game that's close. And that's what the Huskies are going to be in for the rest of the season. I think I've said this now every show. The Huskies are going to be in close game after close game after close game. And it's for 2 reasons. Reason number 1, the Husky offense is good. Reason number 2, the Husky pass defense is very good. So teams are going to be running against the Huskies, keeping the clock moving and keeping it for a more quick-paced game. Well, the Husky offense isn't going to be scoring that much, isn't going to be scoring quickly or anything like that. And that'll keep the game low scoring as teams won't get as many possessions. They won't get as many shots at scoring. For the Huskies offense, it's going to be they are not going to be able to win a game when the defense doesn't help them out. In order for this Husky team to win games, I honestly believe the defense must score. The defense must put them in great position. The defense must give them basically scores, must gift them touchdowns. I mean, the defense did that too this week. The defense forced 2 turnovers. On one of them, it was an interception after Dylan Morris's interception. The Husky offense did not take advantage of starting in Oregon State territory. They started just on the other side of the 50, and they did a 3-play 3-and-out, losing 3 yards. So they didn't take advantage on that play. However, later on in the game, Huskies just tied the game up. So the Huskies are kind of building up momentum. And then they build even more momentum up when Oregon State fumbles the ball, Washington recovers it, and next play is a 6-yard touchdown run for Sean McGrew, which I'll talk about later on. So this Husky defense, if they didn't force those turnovers, if they didn't show up and play good pass defense, or not just good pass defense, but lockdown pass defense, this would have probably been a blowout because the Husky offense is incapable of winning games by themselves. It's just what it's turned to. The Husky offense has become too predictable. The Husky offense has been too predictable from the get-go with John Donovan, our offensive coordinator, not being creative enough. His one creative twist, really, that he's implemented mid-season has been the Wildcat formation. And that formation has worked. And just think about this for a second. Against Oregon State, Washington had more points with Sean McGrew taking the snap than they did with Dylan Morris taking the snap. They had 2 touchdowns from the Wildcat formation. They had 1 touchdown and a field goal with Dylan Morris under center. Your running back is responsible for more touchdowns by himself than the quarterback. That's not a good thing, especially with the Wildcat formation has worked up to this point. I mean, they implemented it, I believe, against Arkansas State, which also happened to be the first time Sean McGrew played. And it's worked. But it's become too predictable for me. I think when they meet a team that can really scout this Husky team, that can really implement a defensive scheme to stop them, when this team sees the Wildcat, they're going to stack the box. They're going to maybe send the middle linebackers up the middle, because maybe send one guy on the edge, because what the Huskies have done is just run it with McGrew each time in Wildcat. McGrew has yet to hand the ball off. McGrew just keeps the ball each time he takes the direct snap, runs up the middle, usually to the right side, I believe, has been the side he's run most often. So the Huskies are going to have to put a wrinkle in that eventually if they want to keep using it, or just come up with more plays that throw the defense off. Because so far, the Husky offense is more or less plain. They're more or less, you hand the ball off in the middle. More or less, you throw the slant routes. More or less, you just throw the basic passing tree. You run the basic inside zones, power runs, and that's not going to win the Huskies any more games this year. Now, moving on to the next topic, it's the lack of a run defense. Against Oregon State, the Huskies allowed 242 yards on the ground. The Husky run defense has not been good for years now. The Husky defense, if you think about the Husky defense, the first thing you think about is their pass defense, because their pass defense is elite. Their pass defense last night against Oregon State, a team that had been playing great. Chance Nolan had been throwing the ball great. He had, I think, close to 800 yards passing, 9 touchdowns to 1 or 2 interceptions on the year. And last night, Chance Nolan, 7 of 15, 48 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. His QBR was worse than Dylan Morris's at 13.1. So the Husky have an elite pass defense, but their run defense is non-existent. They rank 101st in the NCAA in rush defense, allowing 180 yards per game. They allowed 242 yards last night, allowing 111 yards, I believe it was, to BJ Baylor. BJ Baylor had 111 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns. So the Husky run defense it's kind of a mystery to me, actually. Let's take a step back as to why this run defense is so bad. Because they have players who, on paper, or looking at them, they'd be great. They've got some big bodies up front: Sam Taimani, Tuli Gasinoa, Taki. They've got some big bodies interior. At linebacker, they've got Edifon. They've got Sermon, who I'm not a big fan of Sermon. So maybe he's been an issue. I've seen a couple times this season, a few times, where he's just straight up whiffed on a tackle, straight up taking the wrong step when crashing down for the run, causing him to get kicked out by a pulling guard or just a guard dragging onto the second level. And so Sermon needs to step his game up for sure. The whole Huskies defense, though, needs to step their game up if they want to stop this run, or if they want to stop the opposing team's run. Because so far, when a team has been able to find a consistent ground game against the Huskies, they've won. Montana got some consistency going. They won. Michigan, they did nothing but run. I mean, they ran for over 300 yards, I think it was, on the ground against Washington. Absolutely crushed them. And when a team can do that, crush the opposing team on the ground, they're going to win the game. They're going to win the game because when you're running for that much, when you're running that easily, you're going to win the time of possession battle. And Oregon State did that. They had the ball for 32 minutes to Washington's 27 minutes. Not a huge difference, but still, that might have been an extra possession for Oregon State, which could have let them get more points. Well, they did get more points in the end. So losing the run battle is huge, especially for a guy like Jimmy Lake. Jimmy Lake is a defensive coach. Jimmy Lake, he's a defensive backs coach, but he's a defensive-minded coach at heart. He's a guy who wants the defense to be dominant. And the defense has 2 levels to it: run game, pass game. The Huskies' passing defense is dominant. The Huskies' passing defense is absolutely elite. They've got some great players back there. Even without Buki playing last night because of his injured shoulder, they played elite pass defense. Their run defense is the opposite of elite. The Husky run defense is as far from elite as you can be. It's struggled immensely once again. And it is costing Washington these games because when a defense just gets plowed through over and over again by a running back, and then the offense can never stay on the field, that's a part of it too. The offense is also to blame for this poor run defense because, like I said above, all these plays, all these drives where the Huskies go 3 and out, let's count them up 1 3 and out. That was a 2 play. So that's another one basically 3 and outs, 4 and outs, 5 and outs. Huskies had 5 and outs last night. That's plays where the Husky defense just makes a great stop. Then they're instantly back on the field within a few minutes. The Husky defense is getting tired. Obviously, the Husky defense gets tired when they're on the field so much. And they are more susceptible to those big breakout runs, to those long, just drive killing conversions on 3rd and 4, 3rd and 2, where they just punch it, just get to the first down. So the Husky offense needs to be more consistent. And with a more consistent Husky offense, the Husky defense can be more consistent. Now, getting on to my next topic, underwhelming. Who underwhelmed, who disappointed for Washington? Well, let's just start with Dylan Morris, I guess. Just start with the guy at the top. Start with the quarterback, as the quarterback is supposed to be the leader on a team. The quarterback is supposed to be the star on a great team. The quarterback probably 80, 85% of the time is going to be the best player on that team. Now, there's going to be situations like Alabama from a few years ago where they're just loaded at running back and they have those great guys. But more often than not, the quarterback on one of these top teams is going to be the best player. Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields was maybe not Justin Fields on Ohio State, but he still was one of the best players. Tua was. Jalen Hurts on Oklahoma, he played great ball. Kyler Murray on Oklahoma. All these great teams, more often than not, what they have in common is a great quarterback. Dylan Morris is not that. Dylan Morris has not played good enough this season or good enough in his career to be that for Washington. He is not that guy. He is not the guy on Washington. You look at Morris's season stats, and yeah, they're respectable. 1,262 yards and 7 touchdowns. But then you look at the rest of the stats, 6 interceptions, 59% completion rating, and you see he struggled. He struggles with accuracy. He struggled with accuracy last year as well. There were a number of times where he sailed a ball, underthrew a ball, missed an open receiver. He's doing the same thing over and over again this season. And it's cost the Huskies. It's cost them on conversions. It's cost them in every game. Morris's accuracy, Morris's decision making, throwing just horrible interceptions like he did last night against Oregon State. He is not the guy. He is not that guy. And he underwhelmed once again for Washington. And now another guy that underwhelmed, Cam Davis. Cameron Davis had 1 carry last night, -4 yards and a fumble. I don't want to call Davis a bust yet or a complete letdown or anything like that, but he is teetering on that edge. He is so close for me just saying, put him on the bench and don't put him in the game anymore. He has not played good. And I'll be the first to admit myself, I thought he would be good. I saw him in practice. I saw his physical stature. I saw his potential with that, his athleticism. But he's clearly missing something. I don't know if it's the vision. I don't know if he's not got fast enough feet or something, but he's clearly missing something as he's done nothing on the year. Nothing. On the year, he's got 26 carries for 68 yards. He's averaging less than 3 yards a carry. Not a good average. And it's going to be telling to see. The Huskies have 2 weeks now off as they don't play again until they play Arizona Friday or UCLA on the 16th, and then that's the Friday game. So the Huskies don't play again until October 16th. They've got 13 days to figure this out, 13 days to get out of this offensive slump or just horrible offense they have, fix it, and 13 days to figure it out. And it's going to be very telling to see who's playing. Is Cam Davis going to be playing against UCLA? Is Richard Newton going to be back to healthy and playing against UCLA? Or will the Huskies ride with the hot hand who getting into players who shine? That's who shined. Sean McGrew and Kamari Pleasant. Those two running backs shined. If the Huskies had won the game, it would have been because of these two guys. They were not the reason the Huskies lost. They both played great. They both had some of their best games in a Husky uniform. Sean McGrew had 16 carries for 104 yards and 2 touchdowns. He has 6.5 yards per carry average. McGrew has now scored 2 touchdowns in 3 straight games, which also just so happens to be the only 3 games he's played, as Lake had him on the bench for weeks 1 and 2. He had him in the bench as what Lake preached at the press conference was, you earn your reps by playing great in practice. And that's great. You want your guys to practice great. But when I heard that, I thought to myself, so if a player plays great in practice, but then he can't play good in games, do you just keep playing him? Just keep playing him in games because he can play good in practice? So you're like, well, he's got to play great in the game, right? And I guess it took Lake 3 games to realize that. And after Lake played McGrew, after week 3, he said, I'm not going to call him a liar. He said McGrew had his best week of practice that week. That may have been true. But eventually, Lake needs to realize it's not always about practice. It's about what these players do on the field, on the game day, that earns them future reps and future snaps in games. And that's definitely been McGrew and Pleasant. Kamari Pleasant, I would say this has been his best game that I can remember ever for him at Washington in his 5th year or 6th year, whatever he's at now at Washington and been here for so long. This was his best game. He had 12 carries for 84 yards, 7 yards a carry. Pleasant was huge for the Huskies. He was dominant out there. He was bullying Oregon State's defense at times. He was not only finding the holes, but he was then welcoming contact, shrugging off the defense, stiff arming them, juking them. He was getting the yards after contact. He was making plays. He was moving the sticks consistently. And he and McGrew definitely earned their playing time for UCLA, earned their playing time for the next game. But of course, what does Lake say at the press conference? Lake's asked about if McGrew and Pleasant's performance kind of separated themselves from the other 2 backs. And Lake's response is, I love all 4 of our running backs. That, of course, that was the response he was going to say, right? Could we have expected anything else than him not giving us anything at all? Of course, he's going to say he loves all 4 backs. He's not going to say, yep, McGrew and Pleasant are going to be the starters moving forward. No, he said how he's excited to get Newton back fully healthy. Didn't mention Cam Davis. I wonder why. Didn't play that well. But I mean, it's just so frustrating sometimes listening to those press conferences by Lake as he doesn't seem worried. He seems like thinking, well, we played our best out there. We lost. Let's go back to the drawing board for next week, see what we can do. And you want your coach to show a little emotion sometimes. You want your coach to go off sometimes. Tell players they have to play better. You want your coach to do that, but that's not who Lake is. Now, another player who shined just a little bit, Trill Bynum. Huskies overall in the passing game wasn't much to phone home about, wasn't much to get excited about, but Trill Bynum had a solid game, 5 catches, 61 yards. He had that nice touchdown catch on the opening drive to kind of try and build the Huskies' momentum. So overall, he shined. And just last guy, just the Huskies, all the defensive backs for the Huskies absolutely dominated. Like I said, holding Chance Nolan to, I think it was 36 yards passing. So once again, the Husky defensive backs showed up to play in the pass game. Now, final topic here, is the season over? Officially, no. With Oregon losing, it makes the Huskies' road to the Pac-12 championship still attainable easily. Not easily, I guess, because they're going to have to beat Oregon. And there's no way around that, but it helps them out, I guess. But with what I saw against Oregon State, what I saw the Huskies do against Oregon State last night, I'd say the season is over. This Husky team is flawed, and it's not on the players, but the coaching staff and the upper management at UW failing. They're failing the players, they're failing the fans of University of Washington. They're doing this, they're failing by not implementing a winning game strategy each week and not having the best coaches out there. John Donovan is a drowning offensive coordinator. The Husky offense is stuck in first gear. They cannot get to second and third gear. They cannot compete with a high-powered offense. And Bob Gregory, the defensive coordinator, he is drowning out there as well, unable to stop any running back. He's struggling immensely. I don't care if the Husky pass defense is elite, because they are. They are one of, if not the best, pass defense in the country. Because the Husky run defense is absolutely garbage. It's trash. There's no way to say that nicely. It just isn't cutting it. And the reason they're so bad on both sides, bad on offense, bad on defense, is because of the bad hiring decisions by Jen Cohen and Jimmy Lake. They struck out. They whiffed on their hires. Cohen whiffed on the Lake hire. Lake has whiffed on his hires. Lake whiffed when he hired Bob Gregory. He hired from within the program after Pete Kwiatkowski left for Texas. He shouldn't have done that. He hired an inside linebacker coach who cannot recruit, and he cannot coach players to stop the run. At offensive coordinator, he hired a guy out of Penn State who was fired. He was run out of town. The Penn State fan base was ecstatic when Penn State fired him, and he spent the last 5 or so years as a Jaguars assistant offensive coach. He whiffed on both those hires. Jen Cohen whiffed on her Jimmy Lake hire. At the timing, yeah, maybe Jimmy Lake was the right guy to hire, but she needed to do more research. She needed to look into more coaching candidates. She needed to get more advice from people other than just Chris Peterson, who, of course, Chris Peterson was going to be loyal to Jimmy Lake and give him a raving review and really sway her to hire him. She needed to look at the other options out there. She needed to talk to Jimmy Lake when he was hiring John Donovan. She needed to get other people's opinion on these hires, as she may have dug herself a grave with these hires she's made. She may end up being fired. Jimmy Lake may end up being fired soon. Overall, this Husky team is not looking very good for the rest of the season. But now that is about all the time I have for today. Thank you very much for joining me. Again, this has been Husky Dash, hosted by me, Nathan Mathisen. Unfortunately, the Huskies lost, so this wasn't a very happy episode. But in the future, maybe there'll be a few more good episodes. Now, make sure to follow Dashboards TV on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Subscribe to them on YouTube so you get notifications whenever Husky Dash goes live. or if you want to check out other Pac-12 schools shows. So make sure to follow Husky Dash, or make sure to follow Dash Sports on all platforms. Once again, this has been Husky Dash with me, Nathan Mathisen. Thank you very much. Not yet sure if I'll be back next week. With them having the bye week, might take the week off. So if not, I'll see you for sure October 17th after they play UCLA. But until then, thank